Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bernard Alvarez Webcast. Here we are again, and today I have a special friend joining me live, my dear friend Miriam Delicado, who is a social entrepreneur as well as an inspirational speaker, author, and is working with several nonprofits around the world. She will be joining me later this year on the Spirit Heart Cruise, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. And I wanted to have this opportunity to bring Miriam on the webcast today so we could discuss and share our thoughts on humanity. Where were we? Where are we? And where are we going? So anyway, welcome to the webcast, Miriam. Thank you for joining me. This is your first time on the new webcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Bernard. It's a pleasure, as always, to be here. And one of the things that I love about your program is that we have such great conversations and dialogue and discussion about just what our intuitive thoughts are and what our views are from a spiritual level as well as a physical level about where we are and where we're going in the world. And I think that, on that note, I've had so many conversations about this over the past year about where humanity is heading. And a lot of it is conflicted. A lot of it is really, really deeply conflicted. And I think that is both on the spiritual level as well as the physical level. And I'm looking forward to getting into that dialogue with you as we continue the conversation. Thanks for having me, Bernard.
Yes, and I'm very happy. Again, I'm very happy that you're here. So let's think about this. According to, let's say, Western history or Westernized history, man has been around for 2.5 million years. Mm-hmm. And of course, then we can go into the alternate timeline of biblical history, but we're not going to talk mythology today. Or maybe we are. Maybe we are. The reality of it is that we're being told one thing now. We have people like alternative researchers, many of them who are our friends and are a part of the work that we do around the world, who have theorized or hypothesized that there has been humanity for much longer than 2.5 million years, perhaps going back maybe even billions of years. And maybe there were cultures that were much more enlightened and much more advanced than we are that perhaps may have disappeared due to a cataclysm, as some have theorized and hypothesized, as well that we ourselves are going through the same cycle of, what is it, the yugas? I think, I forgot that gentleman's, Walter Cruttenden talks about the cycles of humanity and how we are heading, we're in the Kali Yuga, I believe is one of the beliefs.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. So I wonder, let's talk about what are your thoughts and how do you feel about these theories and these hypotheses that people talk about? And perhaps even what is your intuition and what have you been told by your guides as reference to that?
Well, as far as the history of humanity, my understanding of that on a spiritual level is very, very clear from my perspective, and that is that humanity as a grouping, okay, so not as individuals, but as a group, has had cyclical times where we have been on the planet as a grouping, and then went through sort of an educational process or a transitioning into higher consciousness, higher knowledge, higher understanding. And then we, in the last world, what was the third world, okay, what I was taught by my beings back in 1988, by my guides in 1988, was that in the third world, it ended up being destroyed. And a lot of you, if you're familiar with my book, Blue Star Fulfilling Prophecy, which is free on my website, and if you're familiar with other interviews that I've done where I talk about this subject, about the history of humanity, it's very clear that we do have, appear to have this cyclical experience. And what remains constant in those experiences is the eventual progression in spiritually understanding who and what we are and why we're here. It's also about attaining knowledge, experience, all of those things. So in that way, everything is cyclical, which means that we're simply going through another cycle, which also ties into what we're sort of seeing now. If we look at some of the history from some of the researchers, for example, and from a little bit from my story myself, about the third world, in my opinion, we're sort of following the same cycle. We came as a human family. We entrenched ourselves on the planet. We gained knowledge. We started to formulate and use that knowledge in order to make our lives better. And some of the people started to use that knowledge in a way that was destructive, and others used that knowledge in a way that was in harmony with the spiritual world and the physical world. So I think that that's where we are right now. We're on that same path. So history does have value as far as looking at what it is that we've experienced in the past, and every single person should be able to understand that.
Yes, absolutely. And, as I'm listening to you speak, I can't help but I had like a little aha moment, and maybe this is speculation, or maybe I'm having an epiphany of what if that we are, now, when we're talking about time and space, I mean, they always say, humanity's been here for, if the history of the world is 1 hour, humanity's been here for 2 minutes, if that. And I can't help but wonder if we are just the next wave of human or of civilization. As we know, there's Neanderthal, there's all different, I forgot the other one, but there's Neanderthal man and there's another caveman, whatever. But are we just the next wave, and are we just going to continue evolving? With that being said, my own experience, and I wonder how this ties in with your guides, is that the beings that I talked to were, I don't want to say ascended masters, and I was interviewed the other night. They're like, oh, are they ascended masters? I'm like, no, they just were evolved to a point where they didn't need physical bodies. And I don't want to throw this whole conversation into a talk about ascension, because that'll be one little aspect of what we're talking about. Right. But is that not just perhaps we're the next wave of creatures that are here on the planet to evolve, and where's that going to go, I guess?
Well, I can kind of wrap that into just a couple of just a short clip, because again, spirituality. What is spirituality? To me, spirituality is the desire to grow, to understand the spirit, that which we cannot see or touch, that which is in the mystery of life itself. That is spirituality. That is trying to understand who we are, where we're from, where we're going. That which can never be proven, but yet it can be completely known and understood. That is spirituality. And so, to me, and so spirituality, and who and what we are, if we look from my perspective, from the history, we had certain experiences in our history. And for me, that history in what I call the last world was very, very, very technical. It was very much based in sciences and also spirituality, and being able to interdimensionally travel and all sorts of things. So that was an experience. We are all, as a collective, having a collective experience, and then individually we contribute to that collective experience. That's what's happening today. That's what's happening in the past. When we pass from this world to go into the next world, in meaning when we die, when our bodies, give out and we have to leave here and move on, we take that collective experience of our lifetime and we share it into the ethers of the existence of the spirit world. So when an individual comes back into body, they collect different pieces. So whether we're talking about a physical experience or a spiritual experience, both of them tie into one another because we are here to experience. And if we're talking about today, bringing it back to where we are today, it's clear that we are experiencing contrasts. We're experiencing learning the ability to see the truth, to have the experience of freedom of choice. This can be seen in everything from politics, banking, all of the big ones that are food production, what it is that we have, how we're living, the homes that we choose to live in, how we choose to raise our families. There's all of these contrasts. So I think that we are experiencing both sides of the existence at the same time. We're not experiencing just one. People no longer can choose to live a simple life, no matter who you are or what you're doing. There is a lot of complexity to it because we are surrounded by those massive choices everywhere. So we are having intense emotional, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, and financial experiences. So it's like we're cramming our experiences into one lifetime right now, and to get as much as we can out of it. And I have to remind myself of this as well, because I don't always do well with stress. I don't. That is a proven fact. But the thing is that I'm always having to bring myself back around to remind myself, Miriam, take a moment and stop and just be the observer of what it is that I'm experiencing, and remember that it's all relative. It's all cyclical. Mm-hmm. It's not going to stay there. Just let it keep flowing and have that experience.
Yeah, and speaking of the now and what you're speaking of, to add to that, maybe about 10 years ago, I did a video called Contrast, Knowing What You Don't Want. And I can't help but, I'm like, was that prophetic? I don't know, maybe it was. But it seems like that's where we are today on the, what do we want to call this, the 3.5D frequency of humanity and living in this human form, that we're seeing so much of on both sides, whether it's linear logical or intuitive cyclical. We're seeing a lot of that contrast, just like you mentioned. And for me, I can't help but acknowledge also, we're seeing the first generation of immersive technological interaction. Like, these kids are growing up with cell phones. By the time they're 3 years old, they're staring at a screen, they're dealing with screens. And that can be a positive thing. Like you said, I don't think that technology is necessarily bad in of itself. It's a matter of, perhaps we've had this like leap and we weren't quite ready for it. I mean, a good example is like, look what goes on Twitter and some of the things that people say on there, and the power that it has in releasing energetic frequencies and the reverberations that come back and go around the world, the ripples that it can create. So there's a certain responsibility that comes with that perhaps we haven't quite come to understand yet.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to a very, very, very good friend of mine the other day. And she said something so beautifully. about where humanity is right now. And I told her, I said, I really want to share this thought with all of you. Humanity is like a hive mind. And so there are different colonies in different areas of, I guess one could say social standing, political standing, spiritual standing, what you believe in. Each one of these is like a bee colony. And what we've done in our world that is something to really think about is people have talked about, especially in the subculture of online sharing. Okay, so the subculture that we have on the planet of sharing our thoughts online in every format, in every way, videos, writing, social media, all of those things. What we do is we share our opinions and our viewpoints and our research and so forth. But think about this. And this is where I think we're headed. Okay, this is a very important point. So the hive collects all the data in each one of these groupings of these colonies all over. And the issue that I see that we're gonna have to break out of, that's where we're headed. We're gonna have to break out of it if we want to move forward. We went from having one hive mind, and we were all stuck there. And in the last 20, 30 years, we started our own colonies. So there's UFO groups, there's spiritual groups, there's Wiccan groups, there's, all sorts of things.
Political groups.
Political groups, there's everything. Religious groups. So we all have that. We're all in our own colonies. But the issue with that, and this I think is true within the spiritual UFO alternative communities as well, is that one individual or a few of them end up going into the colony and they sort of take over the conversation. They lead everybody. So you're not actually having a true and full experience because you don't realize that you're simply in another hive.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're following blindly. And so people in this community use the word sheeple people. Mm-hmm. Oh, they're sheeple people, yeah. Meaning they just follow blindly. They're not breaking out. But the question I would have is, have you as an individual watching thought, maybe I'm following? Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm not leaving my hive to go and explore other areas of interest. And I think that that's where we're going as far as a global community as the whole, okay? And then as those individual hives, we have to break out of that. And we have to really start to have that discernment, that deep inner discernment about what we're doing, what we believe, what we want, where we're going. And stop talking about things and start doing them. So I know, Bernard, you've had a lot of changes in the last while, and your focus now is on teaching people and really getting them focused on what can they actually do in order to improve themselves or move forward. And I think that that's where we're headed. That is exactly where we are. We have been saturated. We've been pounded on with all of this information. We have access to so much everywhere, everything. Now we have to utilize. Now we have to say, which hive, which part of myself do I want to take from and actually push that forward and start doing something. Mm-hmm. And that is where we are, because even on a global scale, we've been blessed to see so much of the positive and see so much of the negative right there in front of us. And by doing so, we are then able to have even more free will and choice But it's not in our heads that we need to do that. We need to actually physically start doing things. And really, people say, what is that? What does that mean? It means stop following, look at what you're doing, make a choice, and start moving forward.
Yes. And I thank you so much for that. It's like you read my notes for today, and I haven't spoken to you in 2 weeks, so she didn't read my notes. I was going to say that too. It was funny. I was like, well, as we're moving toward, the discussion aspect of where we headed, that's exactly what my talking point is.
Mm-hmm.
The sovereign mind. The sovereign mind is a mind that thinks for itself, that trusts its intuition, is in communication with their higher self, their source consciousness, or their guides, whatever it is, and acts on it. Not only just thinks about it, but manifests those qualities in the physical realm, in this 3.5D reality, and brings those qualities out and shares it. Somebody's, again, I was interviewed on, God, I forgot the name of the show, but wonderful interviewer, Monique Lasange, wonderful interviewer. Anyway, she said, well, what is it that you're trying to get across? I said, I don't teach people to be students. I teach them to be teachers.
Yes.
And I think that's the most important thing here. That whole hive mind. I mean, for the reality of it is, in my humble opinion and in my observation, is that we have been edutained, half education, half entertainment, with all these alternative news, alternative new age, alternative UFO, alternative politics. It's edutainment, but it's not necessarily fact, and fact is merely relative. And it's up to us to realize that we are the ones that have to make that ultimate decision and choose what we perceive as our truth. And I say this a lot, the reality of it is, or at least in my observation, in my reality, most of the time when I hear somebody say something, I've heard it said 20 other times. In other words, they're parroting something that, I don't know, someone from another alternative spiritual channel said, or another alternative political channel said, or a conspiracy channel, or UFO channel. They're repeating it. In other words, they're not the ones who thought of it. They're merely repeating what Fox News said, what, I don't know, what Bernard Alvarez said, whoever it is, but it's being repeated. That's not the sign of a sovereign mind. And I believe that a lot of this contrast and divisive media that's going on, is to catapult us to that place where I don't want to listen to the noise anymore. I am going to think for myself. And hopefully that's where we're headed.
Well, exactly. And just to use the analogy of the hive again, each one of us needs to become the queen.
Absolutely.
Of the hive. We are the ones that make the choice where we're going to live, how we're going to live, how big our house is going to be, who's going to be in that. We're the ones that do that. It's like, it's a great analogy. I mean, when my friend said it a couple of days ago, I just thought, wow, that just summed it right up. I thought it was fantastic. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to share it. But the sovereign mind is also equally and beautifully perfect for where we are going and heading. And, that's why I love talking to you, Bernard. We're always on the same page.
Always. Thank you. And just that I know somebody is saying, well, if we're all leaders and we're all the queen, who's going to follow? And you know what? Nobody needs to follow. It's a matter of either you align with I don't want to sound too new agey, either you align with my vibration and you're a part of my reality, or you're not, and that's okay. You are allowed to all be kings and queens and have sovereign minds, and I think Miriam and I are very sovereign, and we align beautifully. So there's a good example,
And we don't compete.
And we don't compete. There's no need for it.
Don't compete. And that's something that I want to point out. We've never, ever, on any level, ever had any competition. And that's why we work so well together and complement each other, I think.
I agree. And with that being said, I want to talk about we are going to be spending 8 days together in the same cabin. Miriam and I are going to be presenters and featured speakers at the Spirit Heart Cruise coming September. I forgot the dates. Second week of September. It's 8 days on the Harmony of the Seas on Royal Caribbean. And Miriam, what is, I know I looked at it, but I don't want to lose my screen here. What's the name of your talk that you're doing, or your workshop?
Spiritual tools. I'm going to be talking to people and sharing how to recognize your personal spiritual tools that can guide you, support you, give you strength, understanding, and knowledge, and how you can tap into those. And immediately, and I mean immediately, you're going to walk out of that class and you're going to immediately be able to start to see things that are around you all the time, to give you more understanding of who and what you are and what you want from life.
And what a great place to have that new awareness on the ocean. And I'm also going to be doing a 2-hour workshop, and I'm going to be debuting the new Returning to Source workshop. Yes, it has to do with my new book, the 4th edition of the new book. It's all the new information that came through over the last couple of years. You're going to hear my story in depth, as well as hear new messages from the Emissaries of Light 1. And you'll be able to ask questions, as well as be presented with new tools for connecting with your higher self. My personal alchemy is that in order for us to have sovereign minds, we must be able to communicate with our higher self, that higher self, which is a piece of that one main soul, which is source consciousness. But just one way of looking at it. And geez, and you're also going to be doing a VIP with people that sign up for you on the show.
Yes.
And I'm going to be doing something, and we might be doing something together, but we still haven't worked out the details on that yet. At the very least, we'll be doing a meditation on the beach for my VIP people and Miriam's VIP people. So we're going to be working on that. But make sure to go to, Miriam, do you have somewhere on your page that you're sharing it on your website?
Yes, it's under the events section. It's right on my front page, and you can click on it to see a little bit more detail. But you can also go to the Spirit Cruise and sign up for Bernard or for myself right there. The great thing is that this is an opportunity to catch us in a relaxed environment where you don't just go to the 2 hours and then you're done. You're going to go, you're going to have a holiday. We're going to laugh. We're going to be poolside. We're going to have beautiful dinners. We're going to laugh. Yeah. It's going to be fantastic.
You're going on vacation with us. Not only with us, but what is it, 28 other leaders and speakers in the spiritual community. And there's some very interesting speakers. Louis Gates, who's like the big medium from Casadega, Florida, which is the city of mediums in Florida. He's going to be there. Our friend Jeremy McDonald's going to be there. They're going to be teaching a Reiki course. You can become certified in Reiki. I mean, just everything. It's going to be a potpourri of all these spiritual leaders, and you can go on vacation with us for a whole week. I'm flying down to Orlando, and then we're all going to be leaving from Port Canaveral. And so it's gonna be really great. I think it's you can go for like $1,100. It's all inclusive, all your meals and everything. But yeah, go to my website. You can go to my Facebook page under events. You can go to Miriam's website. Which one do you have it under? Blue Star Prophecy?
Yeah, bluestarprophecy.com.
Bluestarprophecy.com, as well as I don't have it on my website yet, so I have it on my Facebook page. Or you can go to spiritheartcruise.com. Anyway, do you have any last things you want to share with everybody before we go, Miriam?
I just would like to say thank you for joining us and being here. And I just would like to say thank you to everyone who follows their own instinct and their own intuition, because I think that the world is becoming a better place, even though it might look like it's not. I believe that the world is becoming a better place because of the actions of the people like yourself the people watching and what it is that you're doing. So keep moving forward. We're going, we're heading towards beauty. We just have to stay focused on that. So thank you. And thank you, Bernard. It's always a pleasure. Love talking to you.
Well, thank you, Miriam. Same here. And everybody, of course, I will see you next week, and I will have a new class for you ready next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Live on my Facebook page, as well Fridays at noon Eastern Time on my YouTube channel. So have a great week. I love you. Bye-bye.